it's Brad, Laurie, or BlockchainBrad, and today we're talking about all things Nash. Many of you know Fab. He's here right now as one of the co-founders of Nash to let us all know about key updates. This is for the community, this is free, and this is to make sure that we have key updates for 220 on exactly what Nash is doing. Fab, thank you very much for being here to let us all know about the updates.
Thank you, Brad, for the opportunity of answering the community questions. It was really a nice opportunity.
Likewise, mate. And thank you also to all the community members who put forward questions. It's really great to have that trust from them, and I'm going to do my best to make sure we get through them tonight. So firstly, let's just start though with you, Fabio. Obviously, you're a co-founder. You've been part of the Nash team right from the outset. But for those who may not know, the slogan is all about distributing finance for everyone. It's part of the DeFi mix, definitely. And certainly it is a suite of products. It's not just one. Can you just give us a bit of a wrap up, or give us a bit of an encapsulate or an overview of what you actually stand for at Nash?
Right. So Nash was born in 2016, the idea. And the whole idea was, how can we make sure digital finance becomes available to everyone in such a way that we do not make compromises regarding the values of this movement. And especially respecting like Satoshi vision on self-custody. So we designed it how this would work in the real world with regulations and limitations that we don't like, but they are there. And then we move it from paper and pen to ideation, and then from design and building. And we are here today with, as you said, a suite of products. So it's what we call Nash platform. And the whole idea of the Nash platform is to be back to, like, from the beginning to end of the needs of someone who is on digital finance. So if now or in the future you use and you have digital assets, Nash should provide a safe way for you to hold your assets, for you to use your assets, and for you to make investments on things you believe and things you value.
Got it. Okay, so you're a one-stop shop when it comes to product shopping. You're a whole platform. And one of the interesting things, let's just open this up and talk about it. You have a security token that really drives this forward. That's quite unique in the context of so many other tokens known as utility tokens. Do you want to just touch on that as well, and why that is so valuable to the way you've built Nash out from the beginning?
Right. Can probably be a whole call only about this, right? And I would love to do it someday. So since the beginning, we try to be honest of what we are doing, right? And we look at what would be the first and the main product that Nash could make so that it's sustainable. We are building a company. We are not building a single protocol. We hope that whenever we produce today is replaced by better stuff tomorrow. So we are looking at, okay, so if we raise capital, how can we make sure this is accessible, right? Because we could have raised it only from private investors. But that was not the goal, right? As you said, the mission of the company is distributing finance to everyone, right? And then we look at what was at the time an innovation, which was the possibility to do an exchange token. And when we look at the economics of it, it was a security, because it was really tied to the well-being and the profits being made by the exchange, feeding back into the value of the token. So when consulting the legal firms in Switzerland, which was initially where our partnership was established, they recommended us to issue a security, which at the time has not been done. It would be the first digital security in the world. And then we decided to do it either way. It was about 1 year or a little bit over 10 months of work, especially from Fabian, our chief compliance and co-founder, on how to actually make this work, because no register, so no place inside a government where registers the ownership of a company would accept a digital ownership, in a sense that I could not move some tokens to someone else and say, oh, they are the owner now, you know?
Right.
But we were able to actually securitize the most important part of a company, which is revenue. When you are buying a stock, you are looking at the possibility of those companies to have greater revenue or more efficient revenue within their operations. So we tokenized the revenue and issue that security. So next, the token, it's not an alternative coin. It's not a cryptocurrency that you use to buy something. It's not a utility that you must have to use the product or use to have discounts. It's simply an investment contract. And for you to receive these dividends, you need to lock it. So it has built in itself a system to decrease speculation around it. So with that, we hope that it has more organic and stable pricing. That was the idea originally, right? As you said, it's a few years that we're on this now.
Right.
And I'm very happy that all those things have proven to be correct in the market. So it's not only me saying, it's like you can literally look at the volatility of our token and see how stable it has been while we have been building the project, and how it has been always moving with greater inertia than these very speculative tokens.
Yes, and I remember talking to you before, and there's been a lot of focus on sound tokenomics, the way in which you thought out this plan. And interestingly, by building a security model in, or building this as a security token, it provides flexibility, just like you'd see in any other marketplace with any other company, as you build out the suite of products that you do have, meaning that the dividend reflects the expansion of your own company. And that's important, so that you don't you're not stifled by one aspect of that. So kudos to you. I sincerely mean that. And also wanted to add one more thing, Fab, for transparency. I don't own any tokens with Nash. I probably should, because of the way it's performing right now. But I just want to make sure that people understand this is truly about education for everyone. So you can learn exactly what this token does and how it drives Nash forward. And also probably attracts a lot of people in the speculative frame, as well as those focused on tech. Now let's pull it back a bit, Fab. Let's talk about your products, because as you mentioned, the DEX, or the decentralized exchange, is just one aspect of this.
If I can have a segue on your comment that you made, that's the company. I mean, this is really, really important, and it's like people don't talk a little bit. So if you can give me a minute here.
Of course, mate. Go for it.
The meaning is that by the next token being a security and not a utility tied to a protocol, Nash is not married to an idea that we wrote on a white paper in a protocol where it gives value to this token, and now we are solidified around it. No, the token itself is revenue on the exchange, and we can completely change the protocol of the exchange like every few years. So we keep improving and always being the best in what we do. And that will not change the fundamental values of the token, which is different if it was a utility within a protocol. Right?
Exactly. And it gives a lot of people a lot of confidence, I'd imagine, as well, those who've actually invested. And it's refreshing to be able to say that word and mean it as well, because when they do own that token, that's an investment in not just Nash today, but Nash tomorrow and beyond, because it reflects the entirety of what you do at any point in time. So it's going to be exciting to see you continue to build out products year in, year out. But let's talk about what you have now though, Fab. Going back to the products, if we go to that new website you have, we can easily see there's a product list there. Do you want to just touch on those things that you currently offer in the suite?
Right. So we have a non-custodial wallet for most chains. So there is a big problem if you are a crypto investor, which is the proliferation of networks. So you need to hold or have wallets for all those networks. So there's a few projects that offer multi-chain wallets, right? And we are one of those. So we provide wallets for Neo, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. And those wallets are all non-custodial, and they share a single seed source. So you can think of us like a digital version of like a ledger, where you have a single seed and where you install apps and get wallets for those chains. It's the same thing, but we are web-based, so based on the web. This is one part of the product, which is what we call funds. The other part of the product that we have is the exchange. And the exchange is really a protocol for trading funds in no custodial form. So you have a solution to have your tokens and a solution to trade them. And the whole idea between the exchange was to be fast and to be non-custodial. So you can be like safe and have the liquidity that people are used to. We are not, we are engineers. We are not theoreticians. So we are practical on the protocols that we do. So they are not perfect protocols from a theoretical standpoint, but all the safety that we try to provide to the users, we put the risk on Nash. So Nash is the counterparty that takes the risk. And we believe that's the more practical approach. And this way we can provide non-custody to the users itself and really high performance, really good user experience.
Got it. Okay. So I want to talk to you a bit more about some of the aspects of particularly the exchange, because it's something that comes up a lot, but we'll touch on the other products as well. But if we discuss some of the community questions, one of them came up about asking about KYC AML. Now, for those who are wondering, that's just simply processes to make sure that you're following regulation, you're compliant. But then there's the question of how decentralized are you by having those those checks and balances put in place. And often the response back is you can still be trustless with privacy measures put in. What do you want to say to those who question the need for KYC AML?
Right. It's simply one thing. We are a company that collects fees from the operations. And when we receive those fees, people live off those. So I have a family, and the employees of Nash have families that are trusting on the future of this company. So when we benefit from that, we need to say where is the source of this benefit. So there's a lot of projects that do zero KYC, zero AML, and the fees from those exchanges goes to the developers, and the developers are living from those fees, so they are benefiting from it, but they have no tracing back. So it could be literally a politician in an oppressive regime which is trading on their exchange, and they are now profiting and feeding their family with money that comes from human suffering.
And
so
we don't know, there's no trace of it as well. There's no record. Okay. So there's a downside to that as well.
Yeah. I can be certain that whatever profit comes from Nash does not come from human suffering like that.
Got it.
So this is really important for us in value as a company, and also in compliance for us. We are not like in a crazy country. We are in Liechtenstein, which is between Austria and Switzerland. So it's very private aware and very developed country in terms of these things.
And what we try making sure you can have privacy too, Fab. So you are a proponent of privacy, but also making sure that you once again follow regulation in different jurisdictions.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that you should follow regulation just to follow. It needs to make sense. So every time Nash is adopting something, it's looking at if it makes sense or not. And privacy in itself, we try to build it in many ways in the product. So for example, if you trade only up to $1,000, there's no KYC on Nash. So you can literally create an account with no name, no anything, and just an email and country of source. Again, we need to know you are not from a oppressive regime like that. And then that's it. Like if you want to trade bigger than that, you need to do KYC. And this data of the KYC is not stored at Nash. It's stored at a partner called Jumio. They hold the data. Nash itself doesn't hold the data. All that we hold is a key to access and attestate that data was indeed provided.
I see. So you minimize the data controls as well.
Exactly. This way is like if Nash is compromised somehow, the user data is not on our servers. There is user data, but not their pictures, not their background check, all of those things. Those things are done by those specialized companies.
Got it. And that's important. You mentioned an important word there, specialized. And also just for transparency, this is becoming more and more important to people. Trustlessness obviously is a buzzword right now, but making sure that their data is protected and safe as well, because we've seen hacks, we've seen that sort of things play out. Now, Fab, I wanted to talk to you also about a word you mentioned before, or a phrase of non-custodial, because that's something that is a key part of your whole architecture. It's one of your sort of key mantras. So do you want to just touch on how important it is to have that as opposed to those CeFi-based custodial, options out there?
Right. So custody is exactly that, is having. So whoever has custody has your asset. So it's like in your bank. If your bank negates to you the access to your bank account, they have the access to the money, so you cannot do anything. You are without money. The same thing here is with centralized exchanges, because centralized exchanges can simply negate your access to the funds, and this way you don't have the coins anymore. And so that's why if you go to the Bitcoin community, there's strong say about not your keys, not your coins, which means if you don't have the means to move the actual address which contains the coins, you don't own the coins. Whoever has that owns the coin.
Right.
And Nash was built exactly so that you can have the control of the funds, and Nash does not have the funds. So all we can do is block you from accessing a website. You could move your funds and issue your withdrawals as you wish directly to the blockchain because you have the keys to do so. And this is like the critical thing for security, because it means there's no counterparty risk of Nash going away with your funds, as unfortunately you mentioned is like a very common thing for centralized services to do.
Especially at the moment, we're seeing a lot of these incidents take place because of COVID, because of all of the, I guess, the fiscal risks, all of the monetary challenges that many countries are facing. There's a lot of pressure on governments now. What's interesting also is that you've built in technology in your design that's cross-chain featured as well. So you have that cross-chain trade value. You've done things we've talked about in the past with your matching engine, with state channel smart contracts as well, your wallet. So without going too much into the tech, because that's not what the community wanted from this tonight, do you want to just touch on that tech value? How you're innovative, how your technology really is driving that true value for the dividend and for the security, asset.
Right. What we do is we focus on the benefit, on the service. So at Nash, we want to provide this tool for the greater number of people we can, the safest way we can, with the best performance that we can. So our technology today is such that this is the bleeding edge. So we have like MPC for lowering even more the security profile for algorithm traders and institutions. So they can have APIs that have no custody, right? So you can have like a bot server that is trading on a non-custodial exchange. And if both of those things are hacked, you don't lose the funds. It's like the best of the world in terms of security. We use state channels not because we dream of state channels, but because we want to provide performance for people trading. We know how important performance is for liquidity and true market value, so that when you sell or buy a coin, you are selling or buying at a fair price within the global market. A lot of decentralized exchanges use like this pooling mechanism that can vary a lot on value, and a lot of people lose a lot of money all the time because big buys and big sales move the price on those exchanges because they are not fast enough to react to those markets movements. Right. So we use technology so that this is not a problem. So our technology, everything we build is built to improve on those services that we provide, to bring actual value to the platform. And I say this because maybe we go out of state channels to a better technology. Maybe we change our state channels, and when we do so, will be because we think that we can provide better security, or we can provide better technology and without compromising security, better performance, and so on. Right. So it's actually very good that the focus from the community is not the technology details, but is what we can offer. And this is our focus on the company as well.
Absolutely. And you really said this clearly, before when you were talking about the team. One thing I've always known from the beginning, even with the City of Zion and your involvement there, is everyone you work with, Fab, is tech focused, always has been. And that's something that's always been of interest to me, to watch you evolve. And I'm sure as you build this out, there's going to be more really innovative products and a lot of expansion, a lot of experimentation as you continue to build. So it's great to see you haven't stopped. A lot of people were talking about where's Nash, when you go quiet, but the teams always seem to be building behind the scenes, no matter whether they're in the public eye or not. You think that's fair to say?
Yeah, of course, it's very fair to say. It's a simple thing, Brad, is like we talking now. The fundamental thing that these companies that provide services want to do is improve communication, right? There's no technological limit to this. You can iterate on this for hundreds of years, as we have been, to improve communication. And it's the same thing we want to do. We want to improve digital assets. We want to improve money for people and investments for people. So we'll be always building.
Yeah, makes sense.
Never.
Yeah, and you actually remind me a lot of, dare I say, someone really experienced even in the IPO world, or someone building out a company in the legacy model, except that you're innovating, iterating on something brand new and something really interesting technologically, but you're not removing the model of security, security-centered value when it comes to a company, and that's important people know. Now, let's talk about that in the context of adoption and real use case. And also the proof, as we've seen recently, Fab, your price is moving up, and there's been news come, people are now interacting much more, it seems, recently. But I want to find out more from you. Why? Why is this happening? Why is the token a true representation of increasing value?
Right. I sincerely am not a big follower of the market, so it's good to see that that's the sentiment. All the metrics we have internally, number of new users, number of active users, number of traders above $0, number of traders about $1,000, what we call strong active users. These are users that have more than 2 sessions, and strong active traders. All those numbers are going up, okay? Our monthly growth on mobile is about 65%. Mm-hmm. We are over 25,000 active users on the mobile. So I think that when you see growth like that inside a company, it's a strong measurement of traction. So we need to see what we are doing right and feedback on that and double down on that. So if the market reflects that, that's really good. I think the market does. And I think that even when we have a lot of noise and uncertainty and speculation, there's still fundamentals that go up. And that's why I believe that Bitcoin is number one, because it has the most traction within the ecosystem. There's not only speculation, there is fundamentals behind that.
Right. Well, there are, in terms of the utility token, number one, but you're a security token, so maybe you're number one in a different way, if you want to look at it a little differently in terms of the potential. So secret sauce, when we talk about technology, one of the things we know about you is your MPC, the multi-party compute. So are there certain aspects you would regard as the fundamental you mentioned, but literally those secret aspects that are really driving value, driving innovation, that when we compare it to other models, sets you apart?
Right. I think it's 2 things. It's a group of technologies that we are using right now, which are basically state channels and secure multi-party computation, both together. And the second one is behavior, which is the engineering pragmatism. So when we think about protocols, when we think about workflows, we try to focus on the user experience and safety. So when you are building a technological system, especially a network protocol, Brad, you build something that is called a threat model. So it's like when someone is attacking you, you try to say all the conditions that can go wrong. So when we build a threat model for Nash, we try to look at places things could go wrong if who would lose with that. Mm-hmm. And we try to focus that it would be Nash and would be very contained. So we do not try to make the protocols perfect in a sense that it's unhackable. Nash is not unhackable. But if it is ever hackable, users would not lose any funds. it would be Nash, and it would be very little, such that this person would go over some immense trouble to maybe buy a few caipirinhas.
I see. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that as well, Fab, because we've seen in DeFi with Ethereum that they're trying to sort of back those who are speculating on some of these very new DeFi-based utility assets with insurance-like systems, like with Nexus Mutual. With you, because you have a security model, a security token, do you also look at making sure there's insurance for any of those who are investing?
Right. So we currently don't have any insurance, but insurance is just a traditional practice of the market to mitigate risks, right?
Right.
So I hope that with traction, we make enough profit that we can actually provide insurance, not because it's needed, but because it can clear the risk profile for different kind of users.
Right.
So it's just Brad. If you really understand technology and we have open sourced a few things, we go deep and spend maybe a few weeks looking to that, you would build yourself like a risk profile. Like you say, oh, this is the risk profile of Nash. That's clearly not possible for everyone to do. People depend on communicators like yourself and their own understanding. So it's not easy to understand the full risk profile of all these DeFi protocols. And we see hacks happen every day, right? And a lot of those people didn't think were possible, right? But they were possible. So why were these DeFi projects hacked like those? And people thought that was not possible is because they didn't understand the actual risk profile of the project.
Exactly.
Okay? And when you have insurance, you kind of say, you put a safety net in that is like, you don't really need to understand that. All you need to know is that we are insuring you with actual capital against that. So no, Nash currently does not have insurance, but if we grow, it's certainly something I would like to provide for our users.
Well, that's great to know, Fab, because again, you can expand all of these products, which I really like. One of the community members also wanted to ask a bit more on the Nash to fiat on-ramps to try and understand, how you're going to make sure there's a seamless on-ramp for fiat, because it's something that you always built in right from the get-go. You thought about it. So is it more easy, this facility, and whereabouts can we do it in the world?
Right, because we actually have AML, we can do this, right, as a company. So we have banking relationships, and we will leverage those to be able to provide a fiat on and off ramp. So because we are building a platform and not a single product, we can be non-custodial in such a way that these coins will go directly to your wallet, and your wallet already exists inside Nash under a non-custodial setup where you control it. So we'll provide the fiat ramp thing, and we will send the coins directly to your control. That's the whole idea. Because we have AML, we can have banking relationships, so we can actually do this movement.
Got it. So do you want to just touch on? Sure. I'm sorry to interrupt, Fab, but do you want to just touch on those partnerships or those associations, not to FOMO, but so we're clear on the kind of effort from the back end that you've made to forge these key partnerships around the world, so you can have this seamless fiat to wallet, process.
Right. It's not only me. It's, as I said, this is Fabian, and I myself have been looking into this as well. But I would say we as the company. Okay, it's just I like to give credit to the guys that work hard.
Yeah.
But because we actually build this thing, being compliant, we can have those relationships, right? So a lot of those people want to see, right? The proof is in the pudding, right? Like they need to see the product. They need to see you are actually, and they will create accounts and test it and see how it works. And then in a few months, they'll say, okay, let's talk again about that, right?
Right.
And building this relationship, building this trust between companies is something that takes time. And it's something that we have been working for a long time. I don't like to give names because
I know you don't. You know I like to give names, so that's always interesting when we talk, because I just want to hear that you are forging real strong partnerships. It's okay if you don't want to mention them. I'll dig them out eventually from you in an interview later, but I just want to make sure the community know that you're serious about this and that you're building this out so that there is this global focus of making sure there's a seamless use of your products, and also making sure that people can have this easy, fiat to Nash process.
Yeah, well, we are almost the anti-hype company, right? And I think our community fills the gap for that because they are fully hyped. So it's like
All right. Well, that's okay. Look, if people want to know more, you can always go to all of the social media outlets or all the social media locations where you will find many of the key members of Nash interacting. Certainly, hit them up, ask them a bit more. But when it comes to the token, let's touch on that just for a second. Now, when I went back and had a look at the ICO metrics, when you're looking at the graph, it was clear that from the outset, you had only offered up a certain amount. I think, it's fair to say about half up on the ICO, and the rest was divided accordingly and very transparently. But in the context of decentralization, in the context of also making sure it's distributed, more importantly, do you feel you did enough there, Fab, to make sure that this token is well and truly liquid, it's out in the supply? Because now we hear reasonable feedback just more generally in the space about questioning how much teams actually hold of the supply, and they question the nature of DeFi, in that context. So what do you want to say to that?
Well, I think unfortunately projects that come after us didn't learn from us, right? Mm-hmm. And as you said, we gave out a big chunk of our revenue, or as I say, our future revenue, to community and to investors, and the team doesn't hold like a sizable portion, unfortunately. As you said, if things go up, it might be unfortunate, but it's okay. We are in the blockchain space for a while. We believe in this thing, so it's not a huge deal. It's not but I think we did very well. As you said, when investing, there was two steps, and on the first one, each person could only put up to $1,000 equivalent on NEO, and there was a smart contract enforcing all those things, right? And the nice thing was that the next step, the second phase, which was $10,000, was only the remainder of this initial. So we also didn't do like a race, like ICOs used to do a race. So whoever is first to buy bought, right? We actually gave people, I think, 2 or 3 days to buy. And what we did is we did a lottery with everybody who registered to participate. We did a lottery, elected, I think, 25,000 people, which times 1,000 is 25 million, which is the total amount of tokens. So if everyone in the first step bought 1,000, there will be no left for people wanting more than 1,000 tokens. But we know people have different social realities, and not everyone bought 1,000. So there was a bit left that went to the second part. And then on the second part, we also did a lottery again for who could participate. So in those lotteries, both of those lotteries are provably fair. So we use it, a block, I think, on the Bitcoin network, the hash of the block, to make a salt and order all the users. So we can't mine Bitcoin.
Yes,
so
I just want to jump in there and just help you out a little bit. So basically, you were trying to be as fair as you could. I remember that whole process, and many people right around in the crypto space, without trying to speak for them, they do. I think many of them, for the most part, agreed that it was a very well supported and well executed fundraising method. But my question more so is related to hype. So obviously there was a lot of hype for NEO at the time. There was a huge hype for Nash at the time. Since that time, things have cooled down. A lot of that sort of speculative buzz sort of, declined into something more tech focused perhaps, because it seems to be now the narrative we see play out with a very useful sort of, or a useful based narrative that's coming out about how tech matters and what you actually do as a security driven sort of a value prop. But given that, do you regret in any way having so much hype, at the time, especially when, you guys are so focused on building the true narrative of the company, which is the products?
Right. I don't think it was bad. I think it was actually good because we will be able to touch a great community. So I have only to say thank you for the marketing team for the work they did on building awareness about the project before. A lot of people got burned not on Nash because we have been doing really well. Thank God, I don't know, but have been doing really well thanks to the work of the team.
Right.
But a lot of people were burning in many other investments. People that are participating in these initial sales, and they got out of the space. So there was a lot of, as you said in many interviews and places before, there's a lot of bad actors, right? So I think the die down hype that you could attach that much more for general feeling around crypto itself in the past 2 years than Nash, because our members have been, actually a few of them have been with us even before the sale by knowing our work on Seed of Zion and so on. So
I think you're right.
I do not regret. I think
it's a good answer, Fab. I mean, it's clear that you're just focused on keep building throughout regardless. So kudos once again to the vision, the application, and just the way in which you just always knuckle down and focused on what you're really here for, and that's building the products. But let's talk about some of those agents of FOMO, because we can't avoid it. We're in crypto. One of the things the community want to know about is listings. I'm obviously always trying to get that out of you. You don't like to give this stuff. And also want to talk to you about something more interesting perhaps to you, and that's revenue. So if we could touch on, whether or not there's a strategy to try and expand your reach, especially given the complexity of licensing with security tokens in the context of listing, and then touch on revenue and making money, improving that transparently through reports.
Right. So a little bit of context, since day one, we have been doing reports every quarter. And now they are digital and we have a pandemic, so it's acceptable. But we used to go to different cities across the world and try to engage with the local community. So we did like London, Amsterdam, Lisbon, Boston. And the whole idea of doing quarterly reports is we don't need to do it. There's no requirement for it. But we want to remind people of those quarterly earning calls that traditional companies have, that we can actually translate the benefits of having that communication to also digital companies, right? So we try to bring that to the blockchain space. And again, we haven't been following to that, unfortunately. But when we do so, we try to always bring this strategy. So the last quarterly report that we had was, I think, about 1 week ago only. And on there, we did actually talk about listing of Nax. So we are a security, and by that reason, we have not engaged with a single exchange to list Nash, because we are not aware of the licensing status of those exchanges to be able to list a registered security. Right.
So can I just jump in there, Fab? And I do apologize to all the community. They're going to say I shouldn't be jumping in, but the reason is I just wanted to touch on Switcheo, TOKOK. I don't like to pronounce that, but that's another one. And then MXC, I think it is. So are you saying that these exchanges just automatically listed you without your involvement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about you though? What about Nash team? Talk us through the process you have to go through, the hoops you have to jump through to get licensing to actually list in the directions you want to.
Right. Again, I'm not the chief compliancer, so maybe we can do a call with Fabian. I don't know exactly how the. I talk to him and he informs us, but basically we need to be able to trade that security within Europe and the Liechtenstein jurisdiction where our headquarters is, can help us on that. Mm-hmm. But what we are looking at is like, this is a long process, it's an expensive process. It's not an expensive process because you have to pay to have the license, but you need to you need to implement some more traditional reporting, Brad. So this is like paper reports that you need to produce every month, containing a lot of information, and auditing that you need to hire on those. That it's just a signature because our system is provably fair, so we can just generate the proof. But you need the third-party auditor to sign. So all those requirements increase cost and fixed cost for the company.
I see. Well, so I'd love to talk to Fabio more about this when I can, to find out where you're at in the process. But I wanted to ask you more generally, Fab, because you're a co-founder, are you confident? Are you confident that it's going to happen, that you can get licenses for this?
Yeah. So this is what I was coming to. Like on the quarterly report, Fabian said that we are pursuing an avenue where we don't need the license to allow trading of any security, right? But we are looking at a partnership that would allow us to trade just the next token. So we can provide the liquid market for our own token, but not necessarily be able to trade any digital security. We do want to be able to trade in this digital security. We see no reason why we can't, but there are regulations that block us to do so.
Got it. Well, what I'm hearing from you clearly is you're not slowing down on making sure that you can continue to get these these mainstream supports, whether that be governmental, whether that be, jumping through the hoops of the requisites of regulation and compliance. You guys are moving ahead, making sure you can get towards that. So I think a lot of people in the community wanted to make sure you are. Now, one of the things that I also want to touch on, which is that, sorry, go ahead.
No, we are not like applying for a license. We are looking for ways to allow us to trade our token, which is what they request. Okay. And we were trying to find that without having huge expenses, right? We are a startup. As you said, we are looking for profitability. And when we look at that, if you can decrease the fixed expenses is really important.
I see. So you're just making sure that you can meet the processes, the requirements, not necessarily a specific license. Okay, that was clear from you. What about with regard to the innovations happening at the moment in DeFi with things like margin trading, lending, futures, options, derivatives? I'm sure that's a really exciting space also for you with your exchange. What's coming? What is happening, with Nash?
So we are looking at specifically two of those, which is futures, perpetual futures, and options, and seeing how we could provide non-custodial versions of those, because again, that's the motto, ERKs, right? The thing is, there is a huge market for futures, especially, and we have been seeing that, and we want to tap onto that. So this is certainly the current research inside Nash futures.
Mm-hmm. So given that it's such a popular space, a lot of the revenue actually in DeFi is coming from arguably those products. Are you confident that that's going to really add value to you as a company and obviously your connected token?
I don't know even if we're going to deploy those. There is a possibility that we come to the conclusion that they are not worth it. Mm-hmm. And especially, Brad, we have, this will take a few months, right? From design to implementation. And our focus right now is really to grow the current platform. And we have been growing the current platform. So, I can't say that this is certain will add value to the project in the future because it's not certain we're going to deploy those, but we are researching those as an avenue if we need to deploy those.
I see. Well, another community question that came up with was about Nash Pay as well, Fabio, and they wanted to ask you specifically, why does Nash Pay make sense from a merchant perspective? So when we're talking about trade and buying, when it comes to the fees. Right. So their focus was on that.
Right. One thing is merchants, all the merchants we're talking about, they don't want to hold crypto assets. They want to benefit from the crypto economy, right? So what that means is they want to be aligned with digital assets, so receive payments on digital assets, but they do not want to hold those assets. So Nash Pay is built such that we handle all that thing for the merchant. So the merchant only receive cash on their bank account. and faster than credit cards settlement systems. And for the user, it's transparent, so he's paying with crypto, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the whole idea: is hassle-free system to plug in the crypto economy to merchants. Let me compare this, for example, with BTC Pay. So BTC Pay is an option where the merchant has to run a node, and the merchant receives Bitcoin. While that's the ideal world, and we hope that merchants accept to hold crypto assets, that's not what they have been saying to us. What they have been saying to us is, I need a way to transform these in cash because my commitments are in cash. Mm-hmm. And what Nash Pay provides is a system that just does this. So the user doesn't, the merchant doesn't need to care about blockchain at all. They just use a JavaScript library on their website, and that's it. They receive cash on their bank.
Yeah, and I think you raise a very important point there as well, Fabio, in that many of the participants or the users in Nash don't need to know about the fundamentals of blockchain. In fact, you've always made the platform very simple so that in many ways it's hidden. Do you think that's one of the big value props or one of the big sort of boons for Nash, in that, you know, the real value is the simplicity on the top, you know, make it sure that it's user-friendly?
So the way we talk about this is user experience, right? So you have in software development two things: UI, which is the user interface, and UX, which is the user experience. So the experience itself, it's not only the UI, it's a summation of the UI with the actions, with the things that happen in the UI. So experience is what makes people choose products, right? This is not only software. Like if you look at Jeff Bezos, why he works is because user experience, and everything else. Mm-hmm. So when we take care of abstracting things of the UI and making simple to use, is because we are seeking to improve the experience of the users. And we use a mode of design which is called user-centered design. Mm-hmm. So we do interviews, we get feedback from the community and try to learn where the pain points are, so where we can simplify and improve our product so that the experience is better and always becoming better. So yes, I hope this is the main driver of Nash.
Well, the fact that you have a new website as well shows this as well, Fab. You're listening to the community because you do have that strong UI and UX clearly from the feedback. Do you feel that the feedback so far from the community is reflecting a lot of the success? I mean, is there a strong alignment between what the community is saying and what's actually happening?
It's not what they say. You know, actions are more important than words. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they will say they want something, but they don't truly want that, right? It's like nobody said they wanted the iPhone, but everybody wanted the iPhone, right?
Right.
And how did Ivy and Steve came to the conclusion that people wanted the iPhone? It's because they look at what people wanted to do and how they could make this thing simple. So when we listen to feedback, we are not only listening, please include this button. We are looking at what this person is actually trying to do. And then we thought a few ways to do that and present that to the users and see which is the best way, which not necessarily is what they say they want, mm-hmm. but it's something that brings the value they wanted.
Got it. So really, it's great that you're getting these sort of the listening to the feedback and then sort of tinkering with what's possible and then putting it out there. Now, with regard to wallets, there was a question come up also, Fabio, about new features of specifically the MPC wallets. And the question was, when will they be available for Nashers? And there was reference to things like time windows, daily limits, and whitelist addresses.
You know, I'm awful on giving time windows. Because I am 100% engineer, so I think, we can do this and that, but reality sheets defend is there's always half corners. So if I give a time window, it would be probably wrong. But I would say within a month and a half, we should have MPC not only for API keys, but for wallets as well. And then I can be totally wrong. It can be quicker and slower than that, but we are certainly adding that feature to the product.
Great. Well, that's good to hear, because obviously people really want to see you continuing to add, features into these aspects. What about with regard to stablecoins? I want to touch on that. It's a big, buzzword right now. Seeing DeFi stablecoins come through, we're also seeing pegged fiat-like stablecoins emerge. The question here is about Tether, actually, with USDT on Nash. Is that coming?
We are looking at actually adding USDT on Nash, not as a base currency. So the pairs would still be like Bitcoin USDC as it currently is, or Ethereum USDC or New USDC. But we are looking into adding a market which is USDT USDC. Mm-hmm. So we would allow people to convert between the stablecoin that they need for their trading.
Well, Coinbase would be happy with that, I would imagine. And also, obviously, because there are different jurisdictions, different stable coins as well, and certainly some are more backed than others in different regions of the globe. What about with volume? This is where tech does really become key in terms of catering for an increase in daily volumes in the future. How is Nash going to make sure that they can handle this technologically as you start to really increase, your user base?
Right, so to bring liquidity to the platform, we need to have low latency, which we currently have. And volume is throughput, right? So it's number of trades that you can do. And currently, we can do a lot more trades than our volume. So a reality is we only have issues with throughput when we are doing very big volume, because the system was all designed to handle a much larger throughput than we are accessing. So this is not a problem for us currently, and it's not a focus of us, because we already have a system that can handle a lot more throughput than we are doing. Our focus on technology right now really is the transfer flows. So as people has like state channels opening, closing, and watching them is a complex thing. So there are moments where deposits and withdrawals, which are actually establishing and closing state channels, mm-hmm. The user fail because a lot of things are happening on the user client, and internet is sometimes unreliable, right?
Right.
Yeah. So people have been having issues with that. So our focus right now is to solve those transfer issues in fundamental way that will not have issues anymore, mm-hmm. and to lower the latency of our matching. So we are currently as fast as the biggest and best centralized exchanges, but we know that we can be a little bit faster than the centralized exchanges. And then when someone has to choose Nash, he doesn't choose making any compromise on performance.
And let's talk about that in a really open and transparent way, Fab, because very rarely does a decentralized exchange offer the similar sort of performance as a centralized one. So what you're really saying is that in the trilemma, there's often those overt trade-offs. You really don't have them because you've spent so much time on making sure you're competitive with those centralized parties. But do you feel still that there's some edge that they have if people focus on one area of the trilemma? Or do you feel now that you are truly a competitor in all aspects?
Right. I think we have an edge on security because we are self-custody. We also have edge on like moral grounds because we don't have custody. And our matching is deterministic, so it's fair. So this way, there's no manipulation that happens in Nash. And we cannot, even if they don't do manipulation, decentralized exchanges, we cannot guarantee that's true, right?
Yep.
But they do have an edge on liquidity, and the main reason for that is because they have custody. So they don't need to move funds in any form, right? So it's like enter one day on the deposit and only leave 1 year on the withdrawal. So all this time is only trading within their databases. It's like numbers on a database.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we do that, you have advantages on how you can build liquidity. And our focus with the latency improvements is such that this is not a problem anymore. So they have a slight edge on that, and we have a slight edge on the other side.
Got it. So how do we get people, Fab, to care? Because we've seen, that the liquidity is an issue in some respects, as you mentioned. But at the same time, you're trustless by design, you're peer-to-peer by design, you are DeFi by design, as opposed to these centralized entities that aren't. So how do we make sure that this is a narrative that's of value, the narrative alone of trustlessness?
Right. I think there's a question of what I call pain. Okay, Brad. So not having custody is taking a risk. So it's a pain for the user. But having lower liquidity and slower markets is also a pain for the user. And when the user chooses to use the platform or another, he's trying to do that choice that brings the least amount of pain to him, right?
Right.
So a lot of people end up trusting like Bitstamp, Coinbase, Binance, because they think they can have less pain on the security, on the security side and less pain on the liquidity. What Nash is doing is like we provide less pain on the security and are working so that we can provide also less pain on the liquidity. So then the user would choose us simply is because it's a better option, not because he believes on something, but which like the belief in itself causes him to value security more than liquidity, right? So that's why they choose that. But that's not necessarily true for everybody.
And it's great to hear that you're melding the ideal with the pragmatic approach, and you're not just relying on the sort of, as I mentioned before, the narrative of trustlessness, of permissionlessness, of DeFi itself, because that alone won't work. It won't cut it. And you are also offering prime products that are competitive in the space, which is important, and you explain why. Now, what about some of the technologies like Ledger and MetaMask? What about integrating with those? Where are we at with Nash there?
Right. So one thing is Nash cannot integrate with MetaMask. Simply, MetaMask MetaMask is the Ethereum thing.
Yep.
And we provide a cross-chain experience. So you imagine the user installing a Bitcoin MetaMask, an Ethereum MetaMask, and a Neo MetaMask. It's like you have more extensions than
overkill.
Yeah. So there's no solution. So MetaMask is not an option because it's not a technical solution.
Got it.
In Ledger as well, because for Ledger, for each chain, you need to have an individual app, right? And the way you derive the private keys, the wallets for each chain are dependent on those apps. And Nash actually needs a common source of entropy, like the seed, and that we can deterministically derive the wallets for those chains from that seed. Right. So what this means, Brad, is that when you log into Nash, your client, and you receive the key material, you decrypt it locally, and then you recreate the wallets, you recreate the addresses locally in your computer. Mm-hmm. So you need to be able to do that, and that's simply not possible with Ledger. What we could do with Ledger is we could build a Nash app that, using the Ledger seed, would build the wallets on the app itself, but it's just complicating this so much. And again, we are focused on the user experience. The final point is hardware wallets are really nice. I have a few. I think they provide a good security, but they're really expensive. $100 is a lot of money for a lot of people across the world. It's sometimes the salary of the month of someone.
Right.
So we cannot, if we want to bring digital finance to everyone, which is the mission of the company, we cannot rely on people having hardware wallets.
Okay, so what about security though? Because obviously we want to make sure that we maximize security for the users. So what's some of the vision Nash have for that plan?
Right, that's where MPC enters, secure multi-party computation. Mm-hmm. It's a way that we can provide the same security profile of hardware wallets using only software.
Got it. And I think that's going to be key because, as you said, we want more people around the world to access this equitably, and the expectation of everyone having the same funds to be able to use all this hardware is just not a logical assumption, not a fair one. So that's good to hear. What about some of the sort of plans ahead with regard to a question from the community about dividends and the consistency of returns. Now, that's a tough question because no one really can guarantee anything. But, as a speaker on behalf of the company, what would you say if I went to your quarterly report? Let's say we could, or we went to an annual general meeting and I asked you the question, how can you guarantee we're going to have strong dividends, each year, for example, or each quarterly?
I cannot guarantee that. That's simply, I can't do that. All we can do is work hard and try to grow the business. And there's a clear direct link between the exchange revenue and the token. So there's like no secret, simple economics, right?
Yep.
And by growing the business, we try to grow the amount of dividends that goes to the holders. It's that simple, but we cannot promise this will be the future.
Got it.
We don't know the.
So Fab, is it fair to say, just look at for those who are wondering or those who reference that question, just look at the performance of the past. Look at the company, look at the performance of the token, and make your own decisions based on your own research.
Yeah, sure. And when you join us, you have a commitment to that as well, right? It's like it's your investment. It's you are not holding.
You're holding a utility token. You're not.
Yeah, you're holding a security. So
got it. Now, Fab, let's get into staking. We hear a lot about that. We know that Ethereum, for example, is moving to a supposed proof of stake, or they're experimenting with that very soon. But you're also, from my understanding, you've built in this opportunity. So the question from the community member was, why does staking make more sense on Nash's decentralized exchange as opposed to those centralized parties like Coinbase?
Right. So a lot of centralized exchanges started to offer staking for the funds that people has on their centralized exchanges. And the reason why it makes more sense is because they are staking our tokens. And when they do so, it accumulates power on the network to a single entity, right? Staking with a wallet that you hold on Nash keeps the power of the vote with you. And also all the fees goes to you, right? So when you stake Ethereum, let's say, on those centralized exchanges, they will charge a fee from you to do that. So you don't receive 100% of the staking. So you lose your vote, you lose your voice, and you also lose profit. So it's that simple. You have more profit and you actually have the vote. Okay.
All right. Well, that's obviously clear. And for the most part, most people want to support any of these facilities and these exchanges that are DeFi centric or DeFi geared, because really that's what a lot of people came in for, was to change the financial paradigm. And I don't see how centralized exchanges really do much more than legacy models when we have you on offer as your technology comes to the fore and is truly competitive. That's what we have been waiting for, many of us, is to make sure that your technology drives the innovation. Now, this is a tough one, Fab. So this is not going to be an easy question, but let's talk NEO. Now, NEO has had a really interesting run at the beginning, a lot of hype. I personally know a lot about it because I tried to really showcase what NEO was trying to do with their public and sort of private approach, permission and permissionless approach with their very complex plan that they had built in. Now, in the last, let's say, year, they've been pretty quiet. I think that's fair to say. Dar certainly hasn't been out on every stage like he was earlier on. So the question the community have is, why still NEO? Why not also look at, leading platforms like Ethereum and even beyond?
Right. So one thing is that Nash is not tied to a blockchain. We are independent of all the blockchains. Okay? Mm-hmm. So we are a protocol that is off-chain. So we sit above the blockchain. But the next token, right, the next token, the security, runs on the NEO blockchain. And to be honest, it's still the best solution for that token, because COZ runs a consensus node. So we know of every consensus message that goes through the blockchain. Mm-hmm. And it has perfect finality. So when you transfer your security from one to the other, so this is a PBFT based consensus. So when you transfer from A to B, so Alice to Bob, right? This transfer cannot be reversed after it is in a block.
Yep.
Once the block is done, it's final. So this is really important for security where you have to lock it for 2 years, right? So that we can be certain it was not going to be 51% attacked and all those dividends and the ownership of the asset is in the wrong place.
Mm. And it's really interesting you say that, because often those Byzantine fault tolerance protocols are actually best geared for enterprise as well. So it makes a lot of sense to me, especially when you look at ontology that has a similar sort of concept behind it with its trust framework. It makes a lot of sense when you're talking about your NEP5, the fact that you're really trying to build out a company with a token that has security built in, literally, and people can make sure that when they're interacting with that token that it's safe, that it's not going to have, DDoS attacks. It's not going to have those 51% attacks as well through the network.
Yeah, so it means that if anything happens with NEO, we could get the history up to the point where everything was okay, and we could continue to that, right? And that's not an option on proof of work chains, because on a proof of work chain, the longest chain, the chain with the most hash, is the truth, right? So on a PBFT based chain is the signatures that count, and you cannot forge signatures, or digital signatures cannot be forged, right? That's the whole concept of blockchain. So since you cannot do that, you cannot contestate which version is the truth. You know what is the truth.
I see. So is it fair to say, Fab, that you made the right choice for the specific use or the need for your company in choosing NEO? And the last question in relation to that is, do you ever see the potential for this to be with other platforms also that meet the needs like NEO has with other, for example, with Icon? We know there's a likeness with their model with the loop, with their consensus.
NEO needs to keep continuing improving. I know that Ethereum 2.0 will also have much better finality than it currently has. So right now, NEO is the prime candidate for securities. I think Cosmos, which came much after Nash, right? So Cosmos mainnet is like quite recent.
Right.
I think Cosmos also is like a BFT-based consensus. So
yes, they use Tendermint.
So it's also a good option for securities. So NEO needs to keep developing so that it can become good. But I think all the blockchains recognize the issues with the key parameters of liveness and finality, and they are all improving on those. Or I would say not all, but the main networks are improving on those.
I see. And just on that note, even though you are not, as you said before, you're not directly connected to NEO, you're not a NEO application by any means, you're separate entirely, but do you still correspond, obviously, through the history of the City of Zion, your affiliation with Confe? Is there regular updates between you? Because obviously they had an interest in everything you built. They invested.
There is. Yes, there is. I really love the NEO team, and I have a great time every time we're together, and the NEO community is amazing. It's just a lot of prejudice because it has Chinese roots, and we live in a complex world for that thing. And they have been victims of fake news. I remember a couple of years ago, there was like an idiot saying that the consensus was a round robin. Like, it never was. It's completely wrong. But that person got a lot of attention for that. And
yes, I remember. Let's not give him any attention right now, because I do actually want to catch up with Dahongfei, and I want to get the facts of some of that FUD, because as you know, the power of the press is immense, whether it be from Telegraph, Coin, the next big media entity, or even influencers. So let's not even worry about that, and let's focus on the facts from them later. But the next question from the community was all about what they were referring to as exotic orders. Now, they wanted to ask were there any plans to add so-called other exotic orders, like, for example, stop trailing and OCO orders, just trying to experiment a bit more with those orders.
Right. Right now, there's not a lot of focus on adding those orders. We already have stop orders. And the thing is, when you think about the main drivers of liquidity, which are currently focused, they only use limit orders and orders cancellations, because they are always looking at the market, right? So you only need OCO and stop trading when you want to place an order and not look at the market, right?
Right.
So this is not the kind of algorithm players or daily traders. They are actually looking at the market, so they don't need this type of orders. So we are not focusing on those, but yes, we could add them in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a moment of prioritization of what we have to do inside the company.
I see. Well, just extending on that, what's one thing that perhaps is going to excite the community without trying to inject too much FOMO into this, or too much, just shilling of your future plans and your roadmap? But what's something that maybe people don't know about with regard to products and planning that you as a team are preparing now?
Oh, I think the fiat ramps will excite people a lot, because they will be very close to the true values on the market. So we all know how inefficient it is to move from cash to crypto, and we will be very efficient to this. It's like, I think a lot of people will be surprised on how efficient it will be done. So I hope that the crypto community moves to Nash, not only for self-custody, but also because they can have much cheaper access to.
Okay, so
crypto.
Cheaper, non-custodial, and again, it's highly performant as well. So you're ticking all the boxes for pragmatic transfer, and moving across for specifically for cost savings and for looking for a platform that meets their needs, not just for that ideal of non-custodial. So what about things like Black Thursday? We saw BitMEX, for example, really endure the wrath of the heavies of crypto. I mean, we saw just how serious things can play out when it comes to DDoS attacks, and then we saw the cascade of price changes because of the inability for certain oracles or price feeds to cope. So what are you building in to make sure these things don't happen for your decentralized exchange?
Right. So we actually had a DOS attack yesterday, and we had it's every day on Exchange Live. So if you were in Exchange, it becomes okay, someone's trying to hack you.
Right.
I think it's a constant fight. It's a really arms race, and there's not much more you can do that. Like, I could say to you, we are doing X, but X might be not enough in a few weeks. It's a combination of things. So for DDoS attacks, for example, as you said, you have to implement a rate limiting, which is like a limit how much each source can request of your service. Mm-hmm. And you have to also implement detections of what we call botnet. So with the proliferation of IoT, like cameras, routers, even refrigerators, they become DDoS source because they have been hacked or compromised somehow. And so you have to develop things or work with companies that have ways to detect that this is not a legitimate flow of information to your website. So we work with like Cloudflare and Google and try to use the services of both for this, and also do our own things. It's a never-ending battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that you're also outsourcing some of this to get that specialized service as well. Now, how are you affording all this as well, Fab, with your team? You're obviously making money now, you're making revenue. Are you investing in building your team and obviously investing in some of these things like outsourcing specialized services?
So you know very well the history of funding of Nash. First started a commitment from the founders itself. So we are, besides Bitcoin, we are the only project I know that the founders put skin in the game as well.
That's true.
And then 1 year after, we raised capital from VCs and public. Mm-hmm. We are making revenue now with the exchange. We are not net positive yet, Brad, and this is my main focus every day. all the hours of work every day is how we can go to that point where we become independent.
Yep.
So we are going on the capital that we raise it. And the way we foot this bill is like we don't pay ourselves huge salaries, which is an important thing to do, to have money to pay for employees and services, right?
Well, it's a very noble thing, because honestly, Fabio, not every team did that, mate. Some just raised capital, then went to the beach, went to, Ibiza or some other place and just, lived it up and didn't actually take their startup seriously. Some just relaxed too much. You didn't. That's what your team certainly have always said from the outset. So you've reduced, the capital that you provide for each of your team members so you can build out all the technology. That's awesome. So what about the transparency of this? How do people, how can we trust, through verification and through checking via like a very open process?
Right. To be fully honest, you can't, because we are a private company, and I don't think it's. We have about 30-something employees. I don't think it's fair to tell their salaries. It's a personal thing. Mm-hmm. But we haven't raised more capital, right? Everybody knows what we did, and we have been here all these years, right? We are still building all these years, so people know we are spending wisely, simply because we have been building and we have been here, and we will continue to be here for a few more, a long time, I hope, and I hope forever, right? But that's how you validate that. You just look, okay, these guys raised 8% of what Beckett raised, or less than that. I think 6% of Beckett raised. Yep. They built more things. They are here longer, and they have greater products. Okay, so they are not crazy spending.
Yeah, and it's a really amazing achievement to consider you raise such little capital in comparison and have more products. Now, what about the future? Do you think that it's possible for Nash to become, for example, an IPO, or to become listed in some of the mainstream markets?
I hope so. I would say what we are doing is a long-term play. It's not easy. We need the community, and we need the community to grow 20x, not 1x, 20x, so that Nash becomes this huge company. And when we IPO, like if we are able to share equity, which will be a really complex setup because we are Liechtenstein headquarters, right? Mm-hmm. When we do that, if we do that, the upside for the community will be amazing, and that's the whole goal of the game.
Absolutely. I mean, that opens up the entire market to, we're talking billions, trillions of dollars in that market sort of space. So a lot of progress has been made. I suppose, one of the challenges you see now is the hype factor, the memes coming out. We talked about this pre-interview, how often the speculation is connected more so with belief systems of hope and dreams, and that pushes price up from all of the noise, as opposed to that real deal utility or proof focused approach, where it all moves up based on what's really truly happening inside the team's offering. So what are your thoughts on that when we see the complexities of crypto?
Right. So people always doubt or always raise it shakiness on Nash. That has always been. So they first said that we would not do real security, but then we went there at the European Parliament and at the European Commission and open to the public. Like a lot of people from community actually went to the European Parliament to see us there. And then we actually issued a registered security on Europe. And with 1 year of people saying we will not do that, is a fake security. Then people said, oh, they are not actually shipping the exchange. The exchange never happened. And then we actually shipped the exchange. The exchange was there. You had a NEO-ETH cross-chain. They said, oh, we're going to add Bitcoin markets. And people, oh, they will never add Bitcoin market. And then we added Bitcoin markets. And then they said, oh, we're going to do MPC API keys. Oh, that's not going to happen. Like, oh, this project is like 5 years and raise it twice the capital to do an MPC thing, and they are saying that they will just add it, but we just added. So it has been constantly constantly people saying that. I think the last one was like, there's nothing that proves that Nash is actually non-custodial. Then we open sourced our protocol and our client, and anyone can build a client to the Nash backend system. And be sure that they hold their keys. So it's like now that died, but I'm certain there will be 10 other new things that will appear because that's the nature of our market.
Exactly, mate. And you know what, Fab, at the end of the day, stuff the fudders, because we've seen how powerful some of these entities, these groups, and these fudders can be. You know, in such a small, nascent technological space that does have tokenized elements, we see a lot of money floating around. Very easy, you know, to throw around words. But when it comes to the real deal, the proof is in the tech pudding. And that's what you're proving. And again, stuff the fudders. I've had enough of them. What matters is tech drives innovation. Proof of it matters. And proof is in your product growth. So, you know, on behalf of everyone who's been here for the long haul and has a vision for real DeFi, keep building, mate. Honestly, that's what the community has saying to you and to me. That's what I'm here for as well, to be, you know, someone who's trying to educate on behalf of people like you, mate. So finally, for those who want to know more, Fab, how can we really engage? How can we interact? How can we learn more about the truth, all about Nash and what you're really doing?
Right, it's super simple, Brad, and we have it's another thing that we have set years back. The example, we have an open community, so it's community.nash.io that the founders do participate in. I am myself always looking into that and providing input. So there's no other project that you have that much like touch with the team itself. We have quarterly reports where we reply the community questions. We do an AMA every 3 months with the team. So it's like, be on the community, we will be in the know. And if you are in doubt about what we do, it's simple. It's nash.io. Create an account, use the exchange, create a burner wallet. You know, you don't need KYC up to $1,000 in fee. So you can just test it, just use it. Like the whole motto of crypto is don't trust, verify. So enter in Nash and verify.
It's a great way to sort of finish off. And on behalf of all the community members, thank you very much for answering all those tough questions. Don't forget, if you'd like to know more, as Fab has said, there are certainly key social means to learn more about it. There's the website. It's new as well. It's updated. I'll put links below to make sure you can access those. And also, don't forget to drop in, talk to some of the team, ask the key questions, really find out what it means to have a security token in this blockchain space, understand why essentially finality matters. Know that they are agnostic by design, by protocol. They aren't affiliated with any specific platform. They just use what makes sense for them. What matters is their products. They are certainly not beholden to one product, but all about trying to build their platform out, and they will build more tools. They'll build more products in the future to suit their needs. So on behalf of all the team, thank you very much to all the people who are listening. And once again, back to you, Fab. Thank you for being here and answering those tough questions.
Thank you, Bradley, for making those.
We're really welcome. And we'll catch up really soon, hopefully for another update. But until then, it's Brad, Laurie signing off.
See you.